Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, I want to talk about this very specific, very quiet anxiety that I think has been haunting pretty much everyone's laptop for the last year or so.
That sounds ominous. Which ghost are we exercising today?
It's the ghost of, did I actually do anything today? You know that feeling I'm talking about?
Oh, I do.
You have a complex problem, maybe a strategy doc or a tricky piece of code, whatever. You open up your AI tool, ChatGPT, Claude.
A tool of choice.
You type in the prompt, you hit enter, the cursor blinks for like 3 seconds, and then boom, a wall of perfect text appears.
It feels like magic.
It feels like a superpower. You copy, you paste, you hit send, and you feel incredibly efficient for about 10 seconds. But then, if you're honest with yourself, there's this nagging insecurity. You look at the sent folder and you think, wait, do I actually understand what I just sent?
Or am I just a glorified copy paster?
Exactly.
That is the defining anxiety of the AI era.
Yeah.
It brings up the million-dollar question. Are these tools making us superhuman thinkers? Or are we just becoming really, really good at looking things up?
Right. And I think a lot of us are maybe afraid of the answer. So to settle that, we are diving into a presentation titled The Chemistry of Thinking. And I have to say, this isn't your standard AI is changing the world hype piece. This is nitty-gritty cognitive science. It looks at what is physically happening in your brain when you outsource your thinking.
And what I appreciate about this source is that it's not a Luddite approach. It's not saying, smash the looms or throw away your computer. But it introduces some really specific concepts, things like cognitive offloading, the generation effect, and desirable difficulty that explain the mechanics of how we learn and how easily those mechanics can be broken by convenience.
Okay, so let's start with that first term, cognitive offloading. It sounds like a corporate buzzword, but when I read it, it seemed like something we've been doing for forever.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
At its core, cognitive offloading is just using an external tool to reduce the mental load on your brain. That's it.
So not an AI invention.
Not at all.
Okay, so if I write down a grocery list so I don't have to memorize 20 items, that's cognitive offloading.
Precisely. If you try to hold 20 items in your working memory, your brain is burning a lot of glucose. Yeah. It's stressful.
It's a lot of work.
So you write it down,
you
move the mental task to the physical environment, the paper, you offload the work so your brain is free, and generally that's a sign of high intelligence. Humans are tool builders.
Okay, so play devil's advocate here. If offloading is smart, and I've been offloading math to a calculator for 30 years,
right?
Why is the source material raising a red flag now? How is using AI to write a report any different from using a calculator to split a bill?
That is the crucial question. And the source argues that not all offloading is created equal. There are two types, active offloading and passive offloading. And the difference between them is the difference between actually learning something and just pretending to know it.
Okay, let's unpack that, active versus passive. Because I think most of us assume that if the job gets done, it doesn't really matter how we got there.
Oh, it matters immensely to your brain. Let's look at active offloading. The source uses the example of taking notes by hand during a lecture.
Okay.
Think about the mechanics of that. The speaker is talking at, maybe 150 words per minute? You can't write that fast.
No way. Unless you're a court stenographer, you're going to miss half of it.
Right. You have a physical constraint. So your brain is forced to engage. You have to listen, process in real time, filter out the fluff, prioritize key concepts, and then summarize them on the page.
You're editing the movie while you're watching it.
That's a great way to put it. So the limitation, the fact that you can't write fast enough, is actually the feature.
Yes. That split-second process of filtering and synthesizing is active offloading. You're using the paper, but your brain is doing the heavy lifting of encoding the information.
And this connects to a concept in psychology, right? The generation effect?
Exactly. The generation effect.
What's that exactly?
Basically, information is better remembered if it is generated from your own mind rather than just read. By summarizing the lecture in your own words, you are generating the knowledge. You are physically rewiring your neural pathways to hold on to that concept.
Okay, that makes total sense. I definitely remember things better when I write them down myself. Now contrast that with what we do with large language models.
Well, imagine that same scenario. But instead of handwriting notes, you record the meeting and run it through an AI summarizer.
I do this all the time. It gives me a perfect bulleted list in seconds. It's incredibly useful.
It is useful for the record. But what did your brain do during that process?
Nothing. I probably checked my email while the AI did the work. Exactly. That is passive offloading.
Yeah.
You bypass the filtering. You bypass the synthesizing. You got the output, the summary, but you skip the whole process.
Okay.
And the source has a very blunt rule about this. Learning requires friction.
Friction. That's a word we usually try to eliminate. I mean, the entire tech industry is built on removing friction.
Right.
Uber removes the friction of hailing a cab. Amazon removes the friction of shopping.
And in the economy, friction is bad. But in the chemistry of thinking, friction is essential. That struggle to summarize, that pause where you think, wait, how do I phrase this so it makes sense?
Yeah.
That is the literal mechanism that builds memory. When you use AI to bypass that friction, you were getting the answer, but you were effectively choosing not to learn the content.
This is a tough pill to swallow, though, because, I mean, frankly, my boss doesn't care about my neural pathways.
Right.
She cares about the report being done by 5 p.m. If the AI gets me there faster, isn't that a net win?
Yeah. If the goal is purely output, you just need to file a form or schedule a meeting, then yes, passive offloading is fine. But here is the trap.
Yep.
If the goal is competence, if you actually need to understand the strategy you're proposing or the code you're shipping, then passive offloading is dangerous.
Because you end up with a product you don't actually understand.
You end up with what the source calls the illusion of competence. And this is where the training wheels metaphor comes in.
I liked this part. In education, they call this scaffolding, right?
Correct. Imagine learning to ride a bike. Training wheels are a scaffold. They support you so you don't fall over while you learn pedaling and steering.
Sure.
But the whole goal of the training wheels is to eventually be removed so you can balance on your own.
Right. You don't see many Tour de France riders with training wheels.
Exactly. Good scaffolding supports the struggle. It prevents you from giving up, but it leaves the core task to you. So, using AI to explain a concept you're confused about. Good scaffolding.
Okay.
Using AI to brainstorm 5 different angles on a topic. Good scaffolding.
But letting AI rate the draft.
That's over-scaffolding. That is sitting on the bike while someone else pushes you. You aren't learning balance. You're just a passenger.
And you're looking around saying, look at me, I'm cycling.
Yes.
I've definitely felt that. Look at this amazing email I wrote when all I did was type sound professional and apologetic.
And that feeling is the illusion of competence. It's like a magician's trick you play on yourself because you have the correct answer in front of you.
The perfect summary.
You fool yourself into thinking, I understand this, but you don't. You just recognize the answer.
It's the difference between watching a pro chef on YouTube and thinking, I could do that, versus actually standing in the kitchen with a knife and realizing you don't know how to chop an onion.
Perfect analogy. Passive consumption creates a false sense of mastery. And the source uses a really striking phrase here to drive this home.
What's that?
It says, if you can't explain it, you haven't learned it. You have just rented the knowledge.
Rented the knowledge. I love that. It implies you have no equity in it.
And if you're renting, you're in a precarious position.
Right.
Because what happens when the landlord kicks you out?
Right.
What happens when you're in a meeting and the Wi-Fi cuts out? Or you're in a high-stakes negotiation and someone asks a probing question that wasn't in the AI summary?
You freeze.
You freeze.
Yeah.
Renters can't renovate. If you don't own the underlying logic, you can't improvise. You can't adapt the idea to a new context because you don't actually know how the machine works.
You just know which button to push.
That's it.
That is a terrifying thought for anyone who wants to have a long career. If we're all just renting our expertise from the same 3 or 4 AI models, we're all replaceable.
That is the risk. The people who were just button pushers, the renters, they'll become commodities. The people who use the tools but still own the knowledge, they're the ones who will be valuable.
Okay, so I'm listening to this and I'm getting a little paranoid. I use AI every single day. How do I know if I'm renting or owning? Is there like a litmus test?
The presentation actually gives us a very practical self-audit. It's a test you can run on yourself immediately after using an AI.
Okay, lay it on me. What's the test?
It's the why test. The source asks, can I explain why this works without looking at the screen?
Simple, but brutal.
Very brutal. The example in the source is from a chemistry context, a Beffer calculation. But even if you're not a chemist, the logic holds.
Sure.
Let's say you ask an AI to write a Python script to sort a database. It spits out the code, you paste it, it works.
Success.
Not yet. Now, turn off your monitor, go dark. Can you explain why that loop structure was necessary? Can you explain the logic of the syntax?
So it's not just what is the answer, but how did we get there?
Exactly. If you can't explain the mechanism, the thermodynamics of the situation, to use the source's language, then you are over-scaffolded. You are in the illusion of competence zone.
That is a high bar.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, explaining the why is the hardest part.
Yeah.
And it feels frustrating.
It is incredibly frustrating. And that brings us to the next big concept in the presentation, which is all about the emotional side of learning.
Right.
Because, let's be honest, doing it the hard way, without the AI, it feels terrible sometimes.
Oh, totally. It feels slow. It feels heavy. It feels like you're stupid.
Yeah.
When I'm staring at a blank page, struggling to connect ideas, I don't feel like I'm learning. I feel like I'm failing.
That is such a common reaction. But the source introduces a scientific term here that completely reframes that feeling. Desirable difficulty.
Desirable difficulty. That sounds like a contradiction.
It does. It comes from cognitive psychology, famously researched by Robert Bjork. And the idea is that for long-term learning to happen, the retrieval of information needs to be difficult.
Why does it need to be difficult?
Because that difficulty is a biochemical signal. When you feel that mental strain, that heaviness, your brain is realizing that this information is important, but it's hard to access. It triggers the release of neurochemicals that physically strengthen the synaptic connections.
So the frustration is the learning.
The frustration is the evidence of the learning. It's like lifting weights. If you go to the gym and lift a styrofoam weight, it's easy, but your muscles don't grow.
You need the resistance.
You need resistance. You need to reach failure to trigger adaptation.
That is actually such a relief to hear, because I think we live in a world that values speed and ease above everything else. We've been conditioned to think that if something isn't instant, something is broken.
Exactly. We view friction as a bug. But in the context of our own brains, the source is telling us that friction is the feature. When you feel that heat, that mental heaviness, you shouldn't panic. You should think, okay, this is it. This is the work. I'm upgrading my hardware right now.
It's just growing pains.
It is. And when you use AI to skip that struggle, you are effectively buying a forklift to take to the gym. Yes, the weights got moved, but you didn't get any stronger.
I love the forklift analogy, but I want to push on this a bit because there's another concept we hear about constantly that seems to contradict this whole struggle idea. Okay. And that is flow.
Ah, yes. The flow state.
You know that magical zone where high performers live? We watch a master coder or a jazz musician, and they aren't struggling. They make it look effortless. So naturally, I think, I want that. And if AI makes my work feel effortless, aren't I just achieving flow faster?
That is the most dangerous misconception in the presentation. And there's a specific slide about this that really clarifies things. It shows the flow channel.
Okay, visualize it for us.
Imagine a graph. On one axis, you have challenge, and on the other, you have skill. Flow only happens in the top right corner,
Okay.
where high challenge meets high skill.
High challenge, high skill. Got it.
Now, think about where you start. If you have high challenge but low skill, what do you get?
Anxiety, frustration, the heaviness we just talked about.
Exactly. And if you have high skill but low challenge?
Boredom.
Right. Flow requires high skill. But here's the catch that the AI enthusiasts miss. How do you acquire high skill?
Through the struggle.
Precisely. The expert musician isn't thinking about where to put their fingers because they spent 10 years struggling through scales. They earned the right to flow.
Right.
They automated the basics through repetition and friction.
So the AI trap is that we try to jump straight to the flow state without paying the entrance fee.
Yes. We use AI to skip the boring basics. The syntax, the grammar, the memorization. We think we're fast-forwarding to the good part. But by skipping the struggle, we never build the high skill.
Which means we can never actually achieve true flow. We're just simulating it.
We are stuck in a dependency loop. We will always need the tool to bridge the gap because we never built the bridge in our own minds.
Wow.
You become permanently mediocre, dependent on the machine to do the basics.
That's a really powerful reframing. We think of AI as a shortcut to mastery, but the source is arguing it might actually be a roadblock to mastery if we're not careful.
It's a shortcut to output, certainly, but never confuse output with mastery. Mastery costs the currency of effort. There is no discount code for that.
No discount code for mastery. I'm going to write that down by hand.
Good active offloading.
So let's bring this down to the runway. We've covered the science cognitive offloading, desirable difficulty, the illusion of competence, but we also have jobs to do. We aren't Luddites.
No, not at all.
We're not telling people to cancel their ChatGPT subscription.
No, AI is an incredible tool. The source isn't saying don't use it. It's asking for intentionality.
So what does that look like on a Tuesday morning when I have a deadline? What is the new playbook for learning in the edge of AI?
It's about being strategic with your friction. You need to triage your tasks. You have to ask yourself, is this task a core competency for me?
Give me an example.
If you are scheduling a meeting or formatting a spreadsheet or reorganizing a messy email chain, offload that.
Okay.
Reduce that friction to zero.
Save your energy.
Save your glucose for the real work.
But if I'm drafting the strategy for next year,
Right.
or learning a new coding language,
Then you need to embrace the friction. Use the AI as a tutor, not a ghostwriter.
what does that distinction look like in practice?
A ghostwriter does the work for you. A tutor helps you do the work. So, ask the AI to quiz you. Ask it to play devil's advocate and find holes in your logic.
Okay.
Ask it to explain a concept to you like you're 5. But then, and this is the key, close the tab.
And write the draft yourself.
Write the draft yourself. Struggle with the words. Feel the burn. That is you becoming smarter.
It's almost like we need to gamify the struggle. When the heat turns up, instead of panicking, we should say, okay, this is the good part.
Exactly. You verify that you are owning the knowledge, not renting it.
I think this really changes the value proposition of the human worker.
It absolutely does. In a world where answers are cheap, where anyone can generate a B+ report in 5 seconds, the ability to ask the right questions and understand the deep logic is going to be the premium skill.
The performers who just generate output will be a dime a dozen.
But the learners who own their knowledge, they're going to be the ones steering the ship. They're the ones who can troubleshoot when the AI hallucinates or innovate when the standard answer isn't good enough.
That is a fantastic place to land. It's a call to action, really, to stop fearing the difficulty and start seeing it as the path to real skill.
Absolutely. Don't let the ease of the tool fool you into thinking the work is done. The work is just different now.
So here is our challenge to you, the listener, for this week. The next time you reach for that AI tool to solve a complex problem, pause. Just for a second, ask yourself, am I using this to skip the struggle or to support it?
And try the why test. Just once, generate something, turn off the screen, and see if you can explain the logic out loud.
And if you find yourself struggling, if you find yourself frustrated, smile.
It just means you're learning.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that stuck with me from this concept of renting knowledge. If we continue to rent our knowledge from AI rather than buying it with the currency of struggle, do we risk losing the ability to think critically when the screen is off? Are we becoming efficient performers, but empty learners?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.